Hello, and welcome to today's webinar presenting features and improvements included in the latest Genesis R&D Foods, version 11.6. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by my colleague Ben. I'll describe the new features, and Ben will show you where to find them in Genesis. A little background information on ESHA. ESHA was founded in 1981 as the first comprehensive nutrition analysis software solution. Today we have a variety of software products, services, and databases to meet industry formulation and labeling needs. ESHA's solutions include Genesis R&D Foods, which we'll be showing today, Genesis R&D Supplements, the food processor, nutrition, and diet analysis software, and our consulting services, which provides expertise in training, labeling services, and more. Genesis R&D Foods was introduced in 1991 and is designed to help you manage industry processes and challenges and comply with federal labeling requirements. Genesis serves as a powerful tool to help you with product development, formulation and menu analysis, reporting and documentation, and regulatory compliance. Genesis version 11.6 is now available. Installed and cloud versions have been made available. And as always, updates and notifications are automatically sent to customers that are current with their software maintenance and support. So if you have any questions regarding the status of your account and to make sure you are receiving uninterrupted information and updates, please contact our sales team. You can reach them at sales@esha.com. Upcoming webinars include September 19th, where we'll present more detail on Canadian dual format labels, touching on the regulations as well as how to create those formats in Genesis R&D. On October 17th, we'll discuss creating labels for multiple countries. We'll offer some examples on how to approach recipe management, label creation, and file organization in Genesis R&D. You can register for these webinars at the ESHA website. Just look for the News and Events tab. As always, this webinar is being recorded, so you can refer to this content later. You can find an archive of all past webinars on the ESHA website and access those on the e-learning center page. During the webinar, please send in any questions you have at any time. Don't wait until the end. We do have support staff standing by to respond to as many questions as possible during the webinar. And if we don't get to your question in the allotted time, we'll follow up with you later. Today we'll be highlighting new features of Genesis R&D Foods version 11.6. These include the added sugar symbol on US labels, renaming and sorting of some of the nutrient fields, a Canadian dual format labels for different amounts of foods, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end. In February 2018, the FDA provided draft guidance specifically regarding declarations that might be made about the added sugars contained in pure honey, pure maple syrup, and certain cranberry products. The document indicates that within the nutrition facts labels of single ingredient products of pure honey and pure maple syrup, and on certain sweetened dried cranberry and cranberry juice products, FDA will exercise enforcement discretion regarding the placement of a symbol following the added sugars %dB. The symbol referred to in the guidance is a dagger symbol, which is intended to direct consumers to a factual statement on the product package, but outside of the nutrition label, and that further explains the added sugars present in the products. For instance, that pure honey or pure maple syrup contain no additional ingredients or added sugars other than those inherent in the pure honey and pure maple syrup, and that added sugars contained in certain dried cranberry and cranberry juice products contribute to the palatability of those products. Some cranberry products are sweetened with added sugars that make them more appealing and increases the total sugar content to levels comparable to similar yet non-sweetened products. So this symbol gives manufacturers opportunity to comment on the purity of their products and to explain more about the added sugars that are present in their products. Note that per the draft guidance, if you include the added sugar symbol within your nutrition facts label, then you must also provide the explanatory statement on your package. You need a reference for that symbol somewhere else on the package. And also note that in June 2018, the FDA released a statement that they will be reviewing this allowed symbol and statement further, so we'll continue to monitor this topic. Genesis R&D Foods version 11.6 includes the ability to add the dagger symbol to the nutrition facts label, as well as provides a text box that appears on the label display screen. The text box is an open text field that allows you to enter the explanatory statement about the added sugars content, and it's intended for use on pure honey, pure maple syrup, or certain cranberry products. The draft guidance provides example statements such as, all of these sugars are naturally occurring in honey, or sugars added to improve the palatability of naturally tart cranberries. And while there is some flexibility in these statements that could be listed, and Genesis provides an open text field, you still want to be clear, concise, and compliant when it comes to the statements you include. The statements should be factual and consumer friendly. And you can see on this example, the second statement contains reference to the dietary guidelines, which results in a much longer statement, but it offers additional context. And these are just examples from the FDA. Again, there's flexibility, but while there is flexibility, you may want to consider avoiding certain phrases or terms like, these sugars are naturally occurring and healthy. The use of the term healthy in that type of statement falls under a nutrient content claim, and that has its own specific implications and requirements. So if you use the optional symbol and statement, choose your words carefully. Ben, can you show us the added sugar symbol and how that looks in Genesis?
Absolutely. Let's get over into Genesis now. I'm going to open up a recipe that I made earlier today, my webinar honey recipe. So with this, I've got a tablespoon of honey, which is, I believe, the rack 4 honey. We open up our nutrition label. Come on. Give me just a second. My nutrition label apparently doesn't want to open up. There we go. So we've got our label here. We don't have our dagger in yet. To add that dagger into our statement, we're going to go into Edit Label for all of the label settings. And then under the Format Options tab, the very bottom down here, we're going to have Show Added Sugar Symbol and Statement, and then the statement text. So to show the dagger and the statement at all, we're going to go ahead and just check that box. And then we can either type in right here, and it just allows us to put some text in, or we can click on the triple dot here, and I'll bring up its own window, and I can say all these sugars, naturally occurring in honey. And we hit OK, and now as we hit OK, it'll go ahead and redraw that nutrition label with that symbol. Again, give me a second. There we go, a little bit faster that time. We got the symbol next to the %dV here, and now we've got this statement at the bottom that shows the all sugars naturally occurring in honey. The statement for the dagger down below, like everything else in the view label window, is a floating box, so we can move that around to wherever we would like as well. So it is flexible. Obviously, for where you need to put it on your packaging, it needs to be pretty close to the label, but for the label display, we can move that around as we would like.
Thank you. So with the FDA definition of dietary fibers for the 2016 nutrition facts labels, we see some terms that we've all needed to learn and embrace. Non-digestible carbohydrates is one of these terms. And so beneficial non-digestible carbohydrates are carbohydrates that don't meet the FDA definition of dietary fiber. Non-digestible carbohydrates contribute to the total carbohydrates in a food, and as part of the U.S. regulation, the FDA requires that manufacturers document beneficial dietary fibers as well as non-fiber components and other non-digestible carbohydrates in their formulas. In Genesis, we have renamed the non-fiber fields from other dietary fibers. So other dietary fiber, other soluble fiber, and other insoluble fiber were renamed to non-digestible carbohydrates. soluble non-digestible carbohydrates and insoluble non-digestible carbohydrates, so that those are in line with the FDA terminology. By request and for increased user friendliness, we have also updated B vitamin names. So now in the software you will see vitamin B1, thiamine, vitamin B2, riboflavin, and vitamin B3, niacin. So we hope you find these changes helpful. And also by request, we have included an option to alphabetize the nutrient names when working in the ingredient entry and view list and the recipe nutrient view. Note that if you have the show all nutrients option selected, this lists everything beginning with the numerical fatty acids. If you have a specific nutrients to view set selected, the nutrients you have selected will be alphabetized. And when you do select the alphabetize option, those nutrient category headers like basic components, vitamins, minerals, those are not displayed. You just get a straight alphabetical listing. Ben, can you show us these, please?
Of course. So, and that will be shown, I'm going to show it within a recipe. If we go into edit recipe and then nutrients, of course this is basically the same exact window as you'll see for an ingredient. So whether you go within an ingredient or a recipe, the same window, the same functions that you're going to see here. But again, I'm just going to use the recipe as an example because I already had a recipe open. So with our carbohydrates, like Alicia said, they've just been renamed. So we have our non-digestible carbohydrate, soluble and insoluble. So you have those three that have been changed here. If I scroll down my list, I've got my B vitamins here as well. As Alicia said, we've just changed the titles of these here. So it used to just say vitamin B1, parenthesis, milligram, and it didn't say what the actual name of vitamin B1 is, which is thiamine. So we've just added those names to those three nutrients there as well, making it a little bit more user-friendly and easy to use. And then, as Alicia said, we've got this alphabetize option here. So if I check that alphabetize option, you'll see vitamins will go away. And we'll have a just purely alphabetical order of all of the nutrients inside of the entire application. And as Alicia said, we're showing all nutrients. This might not be the most useful function in the world because you've got so many things here. But if you uncheck show all nutrients, now you've got down to, let's see if I can figure out based on what nutrients I'm showing here. I think this might be a Canadian nutrients. Let me double check that really quick here. Come on. So yeah, the mandatory nutrients for Canada is shown, but if I go over to US mandatory, then it will just change that list for my list there as well. We go back into that window. Again, it changes that list. It'd be a little bit quicker and easier to see that changes within an ingredient, but that list changes now to the US nutrients in alphabetical order instead of broken apart by the different categories. So again, just checking those on and off, have those different options.
Thank you. And another set of changes, kind of totally different topic, but the Canadian labels. Canadian dual format label has been added, so when you're working with different amounts of food for a dual format label. And for Canadian labels, when you can use that dual format to declare, like I said, different amounts of the food. So sometimes this might be used for, their example is 2 slices of bread. They'll show 2 slices of bread in the first column and then 1 slice of bread in the second, because 2 may be the reference amount from the regulations, but folks may also commonly eat 1 slice of bread and both want to be shown. Another example is the ½ cup of applesauce when it's served as a fruit, or showing it also in 1 tablespoon when it's used as a condiment. So that, again, the first column on that label is used to provide information based on the reference amount per the regulations, and the second column allows an additional serving size to be displayed. And we'll cover more details on the regulatory aspects of the label format in the September webinar. In Genesis, to create the dual format for different amounts of foods, you'll find the features in the label settings, and Ben will demonstrate this momentarily, but just keep a few points in mind. As I mentioned, the first column refers to the reference amount of the food, so you'll need to set that amount based on the regulations. The second column lists the additional amount, and you'll see HM, that refers to household measure. MM refers to metric measure. You'll see both of these, HM1, MM1 connected with the first column information, and HM2 and MM2 connected with the second column. It's pretty straightforward, but those are new abbreviations that are showing up in Genesis, and those are specific to Canadian labels. So just wanted to point those out. Ben, can you show us those labels, please?
Absolutely, Alicia. So back in the Genesis software now, I have opened up a recipe with just a couple slices of bread as my ingredient inside of this recipe now. Take a look at our nutrition label, just a standard Canadian label currently with 2 slices of bread as its serving size, 58 grams. Going into our label settings or edit label section now, we can change our label over to that new dual format, different amounts of foods by going into the label section here. Click on dual amount or dual format, and that'll open up some additional functions right here, different additional settings right here. We'll be able to display the way it says amount in, as well as those household measurement 1 and 2, and the column number 2 weight for the serving. So column 1, the serving size will always just be the serving size of the recipe itself, which is currently 58 grams or 2 slices. So we'll go ahead and say for column 1, we want it to be 1 slice, so it'll be 29 grams, half of 58. We can say for column 1, our serving size again was 2 slices. In column number 2, we're going to have 1 slice. You can fill in your French names as needed or as required. I'll go ahead and hit OK, and now the application will redraw that label up as that dual format option. Again, you have that French section that doesn't have a name, but we can enter that in as we want just within that setting right in here. I just didn't type it in myself. And we can do that same exact nutrition label within the advanced labels function. So I'm going to go ahead and save this recipe now. Hit OK. And minimize it. And we'll go ahead and go do a new advanced label. Call it webinar Canada bread example. I'm going to change this to a, change this to a Canadian label from the 2016 regulations. We'll call it a dual format, different amounts of foods, which is what we're making today. We'll go ahead and add back in that exact same recipe that I just made. So I'll go ahead and add in my Canada bread example recipe. And now, kind of a new way to view things inside of Genesis for the advanced labels. This recipe list now, so long as we have the dual format selected here, we'll come up with this household measurement 2 as a second line. If I change this back to a standard nutrition label, I just do the adult label, it now just only shows the one item here. So obviously with an adult label, you only have 1 column, so it just shows 1 item in our recipe list. But if we do the dual format, it comes up with that second one because we have 2 columns, so it's kind of looking at it as though it's 2 recipes. And so now again, we have that dual format, how it shows the amount in option. Go ahead and hit OK, and it'll view our nutrition label for us. And of course, with this first view, it'll tell us what our just shows household measurement 1 and 2. We'll have to enter those in as we did within the recipe as well. So we go to edit label, and that's going to be within the recipe list itself. So we click on the first one, the actual recipe itself, hit edit. We'll have our alternate heading, so we do say 2 slices. Hit OK. Household measurement 2 was 1 slice, so on our alternate heading we say 1 slice. And that's where it's going to pull that heading for the household measurement 1 and 2. So now those change to 2 slices and 1 slice, and we can slide this out a little bit to expand that label to accept how big of a word that we used, and that's all you'll have to do to create that nutrition label with the correct headings.
Thanks, Ben. And then one other thing I wanted to mention on this, while we're looking at this slide, you can see there's a dagger symbol. So with the Canadian dual format, there's a dagger symbol connected to the quantitative amounts in that first column. So quantitative amounts are connected to that first serving size, and the dagger refers down to that footnote at the bottom of the label that further describes, quantitative amount is connected to this amount, just reinforces the information that's displayed there.
Before we get into the training options here, there were a couple more parts of the update. These aren't going to be things that I'll show inside of the software because there's not really a lot to show, but a few other little pieces for the version 11.6 update. So the audit trails function, if you have that enabled inside of Genesis, it can import now using the import export function in Genesis with the .exl files. So those will pull through from one application to the other now. Attachment files, if you copy and paste, like you can do Control-C with a file and then Control-V where you are actually at. Pull open that to kind of show you where it would be. Open up a recipe. So if we're inside of the attachments window here, if you have a file in your clipboard and you go to Control-V, it will paste that file in now instead of having to drag and drop or browse. The resolution of the Mexico front of pack image has been improved a bit. So that's another thing that we've added in. And then also the composite ingredients can also now use the where used search. So if you want to see where an ingredient is used, you can search for what composite ingredients are included in that as well. So there's a couple of little pieces that we had in the update that didn't have as much, things to show off or as much depth to them, but a few additional little functions that we've put into version 11.6.
Right, thanks so much. Yeah, not everything is a huge feature, but we do try and improve the software continuously, so just to make your life a little easier. All right, so this was just a quick overview of the latest version. If you or your team members need full instruction on Genesis R&D Foods, please check out our upcoming training sessions. The next few coming up are advanced training, August 15th and 16th, and that's next week. Professional training with an emphasis on menu labeling on September 12th and 13th. And let me just say that our instructors bring insight and experience to this course, so you'll not only gain instruction on Genesis, but also restaurant labeling expertise. And then we have a professional training on October 10th and 11th. And all three of these courses are at our Oak Brook, Illinois location. You can also find more information on our website that gives you the rest of the year's training schedule. So please check that out. And if you need to get a hold of us, call us, email us, jump online. We also have many helpful resources, including the e-learning center on the ESHA website. You can join our LinkedIn community and stay in touch with other ESHA users. Follow our blog, and you should be receiving our ESHA newsletter to keep you informed of industry happenings and the latest in Genesis. So now we'll take some time for questions and answers.
It looks like we guys have two questions that we'll get to today. The first question, can I use the added sugar symbol on a mixed foods label if it does contain honey?
No. So the added sugar symbol and the factual statement are options for labels of pure honey, pure maple syrup, and on cranberry products that are allowed to use that. The FDA wording is single ingredient packages and or containers of pure honey, pure maple syrup, and certain dried cranberry and cranberry juice products. So it really is intended just for those. And we did have some feedback and questions about this added sugars ruling. And so, you know, we've seen guidance come out, draft guidance come out. With the draft guidance on this added sugar symbol, the FDA, that wording where they say the FDA will exercise enforcement discretion. So while it's not final rule, officially, FDA is stating with this draft guidance that you can go ahead and use it. And again, that being said, in June, the FDA stated that they will be further reviewing this added symbol and statement on these type of products. And there has also been industry and public feedback from our honey manufacturers, maple syrup manufacturers, and cranberry manufacturers asking the FDA to look at this. So it's really a topic that we all want to keep an eye on. We did just want to provide this option in Genesis for those that know that they want to go ahead and use it. So keep in touch with the FDA announcements and notifications. And as always, we update Genesis per the regulations. So we definitely follow these and make adjustments as needed.
Perfect. And our second question, can I display the B vitamin alternate names on the label as well?
And yes, you can. So in Genesis, that option has been available for quite some time, and it's allowed for use labels in the CFR. So you can use, there is certain phrasing that it's used or how it's placed. I don't recall if it's vitamin B first and then thiamine, or excuse me, whichever in parentheses, but it is formatted in Genesis and part of the nutrient options. So when you go into your edit label settings, nutrient options, you can certainly select various ways on how to display the nutrients that allow those options. And with that, those are the questions that we have and the topics we'll be covering today. So please visit us with our next webinar. And thank you for joining. Have a great day.